Hi folks, this is all the fruit, and here I'm in the Botanic Garden of Florence. Well, it's among the oldest in the world. It's from the 16th century, but yeah, a lot of botanic gardens in Italy are among the oldest in the world. Basically, during the Renaissance, Italy was the more or less the center of botanic gardens in Europe. Yeah, they have lost this position to other countries which invested a lot more into their botanic gardens during the last centuries. Like the big era of this botanic garden was in the beginning, in the 16th and 17th century. It's called the Giardino dei Semplici, which seems to mean that it's a garden of medicinal plants originally. But nowadays, among other things, they have a huge collection of edible plants and fruit trees. And of course, since it's such an ancient botanic garden, we expect at least a couple really old trees. So let's look around what we have here. This seems to be a system, yeah, kind of. But let's look at the fruit trees here, for example. They have a couple plots with fruit trees. Interesting is to note the climate of this area. Tuscany is considered part of the Mediterranean, but they always considered it rather sub-Mediterranean. And Florence, it's quite far inland and also quite high in the hills. So for me, it's definitely doesn't have a truly Mediterranean climate. There are two ways to define Mediterranean climate: the area where the evergreen oaks dominate in the natural vegetation, and the area where you can grow olives. You can definitely grow olives around here, but they will freeze every couple decades. But the evergreen vegetation definitely doesn't dominate the forests around here. The forests around here are mostly made up of summer green oaks and other sub-Mediterranean fruit trees. So the fruit tree collection in this garden will reflect this. The thing is, since this is not really Mediterranean but sub-Mediterranean, it's also very interesting, for example, for people in Central Europe, because if you can grow something so successfully in Florence, it might be worth trying in the mildest parts of Central Europe. Now let's see what fruit do they have here. Well, this is Prunus serotina, the late flowering cherry, Hippophaea rhamnoides, the sandthorn. This is some bearberries here. One sour cherry, another sour cherry, a plum, another sweet cherry over there. This is some wild pear. This could be Pyrus amygdaliformis. No, this is not a pear. This is Hippophaea relative. Let's see. Yeah, Eleagnus umbellata and another Eleagnus. They are still quite good as fruit trees. Here this could be another plum. No. Armenoprunus dasycarpa. Susin coco. What is this? Armenoprunus. This seems to be a peach. No, this seems to be come on, an apricot plum hybrid. Interesting. Hanging full of fruits. So this is a pluot, but like most pluots, it looks more like a plum than an apricot. What do we have here? A Sisyphus. Here we have some Crategos. Yeah, Crategos. No, this is not Crategos azarolos. Come on, folks. Crategos azarolos is an ancient fruit tree in the Mediterranean, but this is some other Crategos. Looks a little bit like Crategos cruscali. Please help me on this one. I know it's not azarolos. It doesn't look anything like azarolos, but which Crategos is this? Oh, here the pawpaw, or the poor man's banana from the US, Asimena triloba. Nice. Well, here we have some edible veggies, also nice. No, there's also not Crategos azarolos. Come on, folks. This could be Crategos pedicellata. What do you think? Well, there are hundreds of Cratego species, so I'm just guessing. But both are definitely not Azarolos. A pear tree. A quince tree. Another pear tree. Why do they have two of each? Maybe for pollination. There are not many gardens in this part of the city. I guess they need to assure pollination here. This is some apple. And what is this tiny little thing here? Oh, Prunus cocomilla. That's some tiny little prunus, some tiny little cherry relative which I'm not familiar with. The German medlar, also in two plants. Yeah, they're planting two of everything. Two apples, two medlars. I guess because there are very few gardens around here, they need to assure pollination in some way. A nice service tree, Sorbus domestica. Some sort of nashi pear. Purosporifolia nachikosui. Well, I'm not familiar with nashi varieties. Over there, walnut, and the second service tree, Fraxinus ornus, the mana ash. You're supposed to be able to get sugar from this one. Well, here it gets interesting. Well, of course the fruits were pretty interesting, but more or less quite a Central European selection of fruit trees. But here the palms. All the palms which grow here could be potential candidates for growing them in Germany. I mean, okay, growing them here doesn't really mean they can survive here permanently. Even if they freeze every 20 years, they will still replant them, because planting them every 20 years is still acceptable. As you can see here, all the palms are very young, so they have been planted just a few years ago. Here on this plot we have palms which have survived for quite some time. Let's see what palms survived here for a prolonged period. Chamerops humilis, no surprise here. This is some jelly palm here. Yeah, Butiayatai, the jelly palm. This plant is quite young, but I think it can survive here for quite a long time. Washingtonium, they grow very fast. I don't know if it could have survived here permanently in the 20th century. It can survive here now, but in the 20th century, I think it could have frozen a couple times. This is, what is this? This is some sabal. Is this sabal humilis? I think it's the Himalaya sabal. Oh no, the Trachycarpus fortunei. No, why did I say sabal? Of course I meant the Himalaya Trachycarpus. Folks, I think I might have a slight cold because my brain is not working. So of course this is Trachycarpus fortunei, the hemp palm, which has usable fibers. So yeah, the older palms, there is not a big diversity here. Here there is a Phoenix canariensis, yeah, so Trachycarpus, Phoenix, Chamerops. The Washingtonia could be a young plant. So it seems in the 20th century not too many palms were grown here outdoors. They started with bigger experiments only in the 21st century. That's very interesting. So yeah, before the climate change in this area you could grow basically the palms you can grow nowadays in southwestern Germany, in mild parts of southwestern Germany. A camellia collection here. What is in this part? Oh, is this a plum yew? Let's see. I always forget. Torrea californica. Didn't this thing have some sort of edible fruits too? Torrea californica. Oh, help me out on this, folks. Well, a bit of bamboo. Conifers for us. In temperate areas, conifers, we usually know conifers grow far north and high in the mountains. But the biggest diversity of conifers is actually in the tropics and subtropics, so it could be quite interesting to see what grows here. Well, of course, figs to grow here, that's not a surprise, but quite a nice thing. Let's see what conifers we have here. For example, I don't see, my friend, the bunia pine, which grows along the Italian coasts. Might be too cold here for the bunia pine. What is this here? Sequoia sempervirens, nice. The tallest tree in the world. No wonder it grows here in the mild climate. Here, a collection of Cycadaceae, but they all look pretty much the same. Cycas revoluta. Let's see if they're all Cycas revoluta or at least different Cycas species. Cycas revoluta, Cycas revoluta, Cycas revoluta. So it seems there is only one Cycadaceae species they trust enough to grow it outdoors. Cycas revoluta. And I mean, this looks like, I'm not even sure if they were outdoors all winter. This looks like quite fresh soil. No, I actually think they brought them out at some time in March or April. Interesting. So the other ones are staying in pots. And this Cycas revoluta, well, not completely sure. Here it looks a little bit more permanent. It's possible they left them outdoors in winter, but still, only one single species, and all the other ones, they don't trust them enough to keep them outdoors. Well, still I haven't seen too many really ancient trees in this botanic garden, which is like 450 years old. Those trees here, most of them are quite big. Well, not the giant sequoia. The giant sequoia is really small here, the size of a child. Oh, here finally we have something really huge and impressive. Look at this, what? Taxodium mucronatum. Ah, yeah, this is supposed to be the thickest tree species in the world. Well, one of the main contenders. The Arbol de Tule in Mexico is considered to be the thickest tree in the world by some people. And this is the same species, and this was clearly planted centuries ago. Look at this giant thing. The stem is not really round. From this side it's like 3.5 meters thick, but from this side I would say less than 2 meters. Incredibly impressive ancient tree. Yeah, I hope to find more of those here. Why did this one survive and not others? Hope you're gonna stay with me throughout the video. I decided to do the video in one go because editing videos just for a couple hundred people is a lot of work. Toria californica, another one. Well, here they have a couple more, but this looks like the same thing, more folks. Is this again Cycas revoluta? I think somebody told them, folks, plant a lot of Cycadaceae outdoors. Then they planted the only thing that can more or less reliably survive the winters here. Oh, okay, Cycas and also this ginkgo, they're actually close relatives of the conifers, despite Cycas looking like a plant and the ginkgo looking like a broadleaf tree. That's why they are grown in this area here. Let's see what's this, I think. Wow. A nice strawberry tree, quite an old one, but they grow much bigger. Oh, and it's Arbutus exandrachnoides. This is the hybrid between Arbutus unedo and Arbutus andrachne. Unedo grows on limestone, so it would grow here if it would grow at all. Andrachne grows on sour soil, and this is the hybrid. Here the big 19th century greenhouse. I made a separate video on this one. let's go back to the area with the fruit trees. By the way, the entrance fee for the Botanic Garden is €6. That's quite hefty, but here in Florence everything is hefty. Nothing is cheap in Florence, so yeah, if you are a botanist, I visited a couple other gardens which are quite interesting, but if you are a botanist and don't want to visit too many gardens because you want to visit the big museums and palaces and churches in Florence, you will have to visit the Botanic Garden despite the hefty entrance fee. Yeah, they have a couple places with spring flowers which they have fenced off. Yeah, this is a good idea. Well, basically those, yeah, the garden is, well, €6 is quite a hefty price for a botanic garden, and especially for one which is not too big and doesn't have really world-class collections. But yeah, pay them, it's still worth the trouble. Over there, a couple more ancient trees. Some of them even fruit trees. Look at this ancient European yew. Yeah, Italy destroyed its yew forest. There are very few ancient trees left in the forests, unfortunately, and a lot of those forests were destroyed in the 19th century. But here is quite an old one. This must be like well over 200 years old, I would say. Another ancient tree. This is the biggest cork oak I've ever seen. Cork oaks are very important. Of course, their acorns, their fruits are very important to feed pigs with them, and even people in times of famine. But the most important part is, of course, the bark. Well, of course, the acorns are important and the timber is important, but the bark is the most prominent part. That's what you make cork from. But this one has never been harvested. Look at this. This is about 2 meters thick, folks. This is by far the biggest cork oak I've ever seen. There are even epiphytic trees growing in its shaggy bark. Do you see it? Do you see them? Beautiful old tree. Couple more conifers here. Let's see, well, we get a couple more fruit trees. I saw 1 or 2 more areas with fruit trees. Let's get to the fruit trees. I mean, it's a nice botanic garden, but I've seen that most of you don't really like to stay through very long videos. So the ones who stayed until now, you are really great folks, and I hope that I can show you a couple more interesting things. This could be, is this an oak or a pistachio? No, this is some sort of oak. Beautiful lawn here, although it has already been cut this spring. I would have liked to see it before it was cut, with centuries of flowers accumulating in it. An olive tree, yeah, they are grown around here, but still, I think the climate is a little bit too cool for, or was, especially in previous centuries. Yeah, they have a decent oak collection. Here, some more stuff, a quince, a cornel cherry. Here are some Crategos which could be Azzarolos. Is it Azzarolos? No, of course it's not Azzarolos. This is some sort of monogyna relative. For those people, every Crategos is Azzarolos. No, of course it's not Azzarolos. I haven't seen a single Azzarol here. It's strange. This is Azzarol is an old fruit tree in Italy, and here they are basically pinning its name on every Crategos they can find. Very strange. Well, here an apricot tree. A couple more apples and pears. Where are we here? No, this is a different plot. So here is an apple and pear and apricot collection. I would like to finally see a true Azzarol thorn here, because So far they have named three very different, very distinct Crategoses, Crategos azarolos, and all of them have nothing to do with Crategos azarolos except that they are Crategoses too. Here is something interesting. If this is true, it would be very interesting. Right next to this black walnut, there is this little tree. And underneath this little tree, which seems to have thorns on its younger branches, there is a sign. Bumelia luccioides, from the family Sapotaceae. I think I should check this out, because a Sapotaceae growing in an almost temperate climate, this is always interesting. Tell me, folks, is this Sapotaceae or not? Let's see what other fruit trees we can find here. Another strawberry tree here. Don't know which one it is, but I guess it would be it would be Arbutus unedo here on the lime-rich soil of Florence. What have we got here? This looks like some Fabaceae, but I cannot recognize it. What is it? Oh yeah, I am really tired. Pterocarya stenoptera. So it's a Pterocarya fraxinifolia relative. It's not a Fabaceae, it's in the Euglanaceae. It's a walnut relative. Oh yeah, I am getting tired, really. Well, let's see what we have here. Let's hope not to miss anything which is too important. Anyways, if you are coming to Florence, visit the Botanic Garden. Oh, this seems to be some Szechuan pepper. Let's see if this is true. Nah, of course this is not true. This is a service tree which will have tasty fruits in September, or in this climate maybe even in August. Well, what else? A big Clericia over there. A really huge, centuries old, centuries old big yucca. Wow, I'm really not feeling too well. So folks, I'm finishing this video. I showed you most of the Botanic Garden. If you come to Florence, visit the Botanic Garden. You are not gonna regret it. Apart from that, stay tuned for a lot more fruit videos from the beautiful city of Florence. And of course, don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe.